Legend of Exorcism. Chapter 81. Strange occurrences in the Zhao Mausoleum. The bloodstains went in a crooked path, leading over the ground covered with withered grass, dripping up onto the rooftop. Hung Jun's hands were folded together as he leaned against the wall. He gestured for Lu Su to come over, so with a single leap, Lu Su stepped up onto Hung Jun's hand and jumped up onto the rooftop. Hung Jun then somersaulted up as well. The more I see, the more I feel like it's not a ghost, Lu Su murmured to himself. Have you ever heard of ghosts eating humans? Hung Jun replied, I haven't even seen what ghosts look like. Though the corpse ghosts that fell in battle were called ghosts, they were not truly ghosts in all senses of the word, they only barely counted as part of the Yao tribe. Ever since he was small, Hung Jun hadn't heard Chong Ming mention ghosts either, and the only source of his knowledge on them were the books that Qing Xiang brought him on the legends of the common folk. Lu Su, as well, had not seen any ghosts before when he was growing up, let alone ghosts that ate humans. Perhaps Emperor Taizong got hungry, so he came out in the middle of the night to have a midnight snack. Hung Jun and Lu Su stood on the rooftop, staring towards the entrance of the Zhao Mausoleum. Lu Su replied, that shouldn't be the case ba, what's he doing hanging around here instead of going to get reborn? I keep feeling like there's no corpse ghosts here. Just as they were speaking, Lu Su pressed one hand lightly to his temple, and he looked forward attentively. Hung Jun swiftly raised his head. In this deepening twilight, Lu Su's body emitted a strange power. Perhaps it was because after being broken off, the antlers had become much weaker and were unable to take on physical form, but those formless antlers were actually glowing with a weak light. They looked like two rivulets, but also like feelers that connected to the divine vein above. And under his feet, that power temporarily also linked up with the earthly vein. Wow, what magic is this? Hung Jun asked curiously. Lu Su's eyes were shut, and his forehead was furrowed deeply. A godly white light shone around him. The side profile of his face looked very handsome, as if in that instant, he had become a divinity that was born to hold up the sky and protect all living creatures on this land. The realm of dreams is the power that connects to the road that leads to the spiritual veins of the heavens and earth, and the cycles of reincarnation. Lu Su's eyes were still closed as he added quietly, after humans die, if they are unwilling to return to the cycles of reincarnation to be reborn, they will linger in this world. Living humans will be able to see them once a while in their dreams, but there are no souls here that are lingering about, unwilling to disperse. There are only the traces of those souls that died here a few days ago, look. And saying this, Lu Su placed his other hand on the nape of Hung Jun's neck. In front of Hung Jun's eyes, the scene immediately changed. The heavens and earth, the valleys and the plains were covered with a moving silk-like veil of light. Within that veil, the divine and earthly veins glowed with brilliant color, which swirled about splendidly. Outside the royal mausoleum, several smoke-like wisps of white light were slowly rising towards the sky. These were the souls of those people who had died a few days ago. Lu Su pulled his hand back, and everything returned to how it looked originally. Can we ask those souls? Hung Jun asked. Lu Su shook his head and replied, I don't know how to talk to souls, but as you saw, there are no powerful ghost souls in the Zhao Mausoleum. With that, after a simple discussion, the two of them were basically able to confirm that the Zhao Mausoleum was not haunted. The most plausible explanation was that there was a Yao, and it was one that could fly, because the bloodstains dripped over the roof of the house. Hung Jun followed the path of the bloodstains to the entrance of the Zhao Mausoleum, which was sealed tightly shut by an immense stone door. Fresh blood covered the ground outside, but there were no signs that the door had ever been opened. Seeing that scene, it looked as if something had grabbed a dead person, slammed into a stone wall, and passed right through it. Hung Jun pushed at the door with all his might, and Lu Su went forward too. The two of them pushed against the door, which stubbornly refused to open. Hung Jun then merged his 4 throwing knives into one, hefted it, and said, Should I hack it open? Lu Su remarked from beside him, "This door seems to open by going up and down. Look at the two sides, it looks like an activation mechanism." Hung Jun. This was the dragon-breaking stone at the entrance of the Zhao Mausoleum, and to either side were iron mechanisms as tall as a person. When the Emperor of the Great Tang entered the tomb to pay his respects, there would need to be 2 squads of 40 men each who would insert special iron rods into the mechanisms, and when they pushed together, it would allow that dragon-breaking stone to slowly rise up. Hung Jun let the pentacolor sacred light expand and squeeze into the tomb, before he then pried it up with great force. The dragon-breaking stone then rose with a series of booms. Right after, he then sent the pentacolor sacred light out and back, dragging back a huge rock which held the dragon-breaking stone up. The two of them both dropped to the ground and rolled, and they rolled in. The rocks outside the mausoleum were granite, the hardest there were, and it had just so happened to leave them a crack that was enough for one person to squeeze out at a time. After entering, Hung Jun snapped his fingers, and a small flame sprung up from his fingertips, shedding light on their surroundings. In the middle was a paved path that was so deep, no end could be seen, and oil lamps hung at both sides. Sparks flew out from them, and upon lighting those oil lamps, there seemed to be air moving inside the tomb, so their light filled the vast space. The pathway into the tomb had been kept very clean, and the trail of bloodstains led all the way into the depths. Lu Su gestured for Hung Jun to look down, so Hung Jun nodded and pushed Lu Su behind to shield him. Deep, heavy breaths issued forth from the depths of the tomb, as if there was wind passing through, or as if there was some Yaoguai in the darkness breathing heavily. On the two sides of the passageway, the oil lamps slowly dimmed, before going out silently. Hung Jun startled, and his throwing knives almost left his hand. Lu Su, don't be nervous, there wasn't enough oil left in the oil lamps. Hung Jun switched to using the pentacolor sacred light for light, and it shone on their faces. This place is too weird, Hung Jun said. Lu Su could also feel the hairs on his neck rising a little, and he said, I also don't like this place. Hung Jun asked, how about let's go back first? Lu Su didn't speak. Hung Jun stood in front of him, but he kept feeling like there was something watching the two of them unblinkingly from the end of the passageway. They took a few steps forward, and Lu Su stretched his hand out to grab Hung Jun's sleeve. Hung Jun almost shouted at that, and he hurriedly turned back to look at Lu Su. The self-confident demeanor that Lu Su had when they were outside had vanished, and he was also a little afraid. Hung Jun, with Lu Su in tow, inched forward, and Lu Su said, if we fight here, we can't fan out either. Hung Jun said quietly, let's just see what there is, and then we'll go back. The inside of the royal mausoleum was filled with an atmosphere that made people very discomfited. As soon as they set foot inside, Hung Jun felt that a cold wind had been blowing at their backs, and the closer he got to the far end of the passageway, the clearer that breathing that sounded like wheezing got. There's a Yaoguai hiding inside, Hung Jun whispered. It seems like it's sleeping. Put the pentacolor sacred light away, Lu Su said quietly in response. Lu Su's eyes held nervousness in them as he peeped his head out from behind Hung Jun. Hung Jun turned, preparing at any time to face down a Yaoguai rushing at them, and his spine pressed up against the wall of the passageway. A voice suddenly spoke in the darkness. How come it's this dark? Wah! Hung Jun was greatly startled, and he began to shout loudly. Who's there? Lu Su was also frightened by that. Where is this? The Carpiao's voice called nervously. Ghosts, ah! Hung Jun had already completely forgotten about the Carpiao on his back, and Lu Su had forgotten this doorstop even more so than he had. The Carpiao had slept the entire way, but now it had woken up, and the three of them were just scaring themselves into their souls flying away. Lu Su stepped into thin air and almost fell down, so he hurriedly grabbed Hung Jun, who staggered and slipped on a stair, shouting, Lu Su! Where are you? Lu Su, here, here! The two of them took a few swift, hasty steps, before Hung Jun hurried to say, "It's Zhao Zilong." "Zhao Zilong? Where is this?" the carp Yao shouted loudly. "How come I've gone blind?" "Hung Jun! Hung Jun, where are you?" Lu Su hurriedly said, "Shut up! Shut up!" It was only after a long while that Hung Jun managed to explain it clearly to the carp Yao. Their surroundings were too dark, it hadn't gone blind, and the carp Yao felt as if a heavy weight had been lifted from it. Hung Jun then said, "Should I put you down on the ground?" "Don't," the carp Yao hurried to shout. "And where is this now?" Lu Su asked. That wheezing, rumbling breathing had stopped, but there were still echoes of it coming back at them, as if they were in an expansive hall. When their surroundings fell silent, the terrifying atmosphere once again rushed in and surrounded them. In the heights of the great hall, there were two glowing green stones that looked like decorations on the ceiling. Due to their distance, however, that light didn't shine down on their surroundings. "I feel like we should go," Lu Su said quietly. Hung Jun had also sensed the danger. The Yaoguai's breathing had stopped, which proved that it had discovered the intruders. Its next step was very likely to be launching an attack. "I'll light the lamps, and as soon as our surroundings are bright, we'll retreat immediately," Hung Jun said. "We're not going to worry about it anymore." With that, fire burst forth from the palm of his hand, and with a shua it flew in all directions. The meteor-like blazing flames surged all around for any flammable objects, and instantly set the 16 braziers in the great hall alight. In that instant, the central main hall of the underground palace, where the Zhao Mausoleum ended, lit up with bright light. It was only then that Hung Jun discovered he had actually gone along the passageway and the staircase down to the hall where the deceased emperor was worshipped. The flames in the braziers sprung into existence, and the entire underground palace shone with splendor. There was a burial platform almost 3 jong tall in the center, in the middle of which was placed a jade coffin. Around the jade coffin was coiled a huge black snake. The huge snake's eyes were those green fluorescent stones the size of a cartwheel that Hung Jun had seen before. "We meet again, Kong Hung Jun dash." The huge snake lifted its head, revealing the horns made of devil chi that sprouted from the top of its head. It suddenly looked towards Hung Jun and opened its bloody maw filled with sharp teeth, its tongue flicking through the air. Hung Jun's eyes immediately widened, reflecting the massive hall of the mausoleum filled with devil chi. Because the devil chi had already filled the hall, with the huge snake's horn as the center, it billowed out, wildly dispersing through the space, and it had already completely surrounded the two of them. "Xiaoyu." When Hung Jun heard the huge snake's voice, he suddenly remembered that black jiao that had appeared that night in the Majao caves, from within the heart devil. "Run, quick!" Lu Su roared immediately. "It's too late." Xiaoyu let out an unrestrained, wild, hoarse laugh, before it opened its jaws towards Hung Jun. Suddenly, the black fog began to spew forth densely, and Lu Su shouted, "Hung Jun!" Hung Jun subconsciously sent forth the pentacolor sacred light, but it had no way to defend against the invasion of the devil chi. In an instant, it was engulfed under the black flames spewing from Xiaoyu's mouth. Lu Su charged forward at top speed to shove Hung Jun aside, but with a turn of its body, Xiaoyu's huge snake tail swung horizontally towards where Lu Su was going, then upwards, colliding into him and sending him flying away. Everything was happening like a replay of the nightmare at Dunhuang. Countless sorrows, pain, and rage came crashing wildly over him, his dead parents in front of the warrior clad in golden armor, the pain of his entire body, bloody and raw, from being engulfed by the golden fire. Foreign and familiar pain of people's lives instantly agitated the devil seed in his chest. Xiaoyu let out a wild, hoarse roar. The horn on its head kept spewing out an endless supply of black qi, which turned into a visible line of black flames, connecting to the devil seed in Hung Jun's chest. But just at that instant, Hung Jun's pupils suddenly contracted. "Say that you like me, Hung Jun." A familiar voice sounded by his ear, and sorrow, pain, all of his memories shattered with that, and it was as if Hung Jun was being bathed in white light. In front of him appeared Li Jinglong's warm embrace, and a warm but burning kiss. In the blink of an eye, Hung Jun's chest shone with a flash of light, which sent Xiayu's black fire rebounding away. "Fuck off dash!" Hung Jun said, letting loose a bellow of rage. He then sent out his 4 throwing knives, which shot forth like meteors. Xiayu let out a shout, writhing on the platform before rushing down. With a flash, Liu Su appeared and grabbed Hung Jun, shouting, "You're all right, ba." Hung Jun shouted in reply, "Leave this place. Don't mind me." The two of them retreated into the passageway, but with a flip, Xiayu clambered up onto the empty ledge of the hall. Its eyes turned on Hung Jun, and it hissed, "This is your destiny, which has repeated for millennia. Why do you still not awaken to it?" The devil chi swept towards them, and Hung Jun and Liu Su turned and dashed up the staircase. As he ran, Hung Jun turned and called his throwing knives back, melding them into the glaive, but the Carpiao shouted wildly, "Don't slice! The Zhao Mausoleum will collapse." Hung Jun suddenly remembered that this was underground, so he didn't dare to use his glaive. He immediately called up the pentacolor sacred light just as Xiayu's Jiao body came thunderingly sweeping over, only to collide heavily into the light, sending Hung Jun flying backwards. Liu Su raced up the wall, managing to grab Hung Jun up in the passageway. "Get away!" a voice roared angrily. An arrow, as brilliant as the bright day, broke through the darkness with a shua, bringing with it a trail of blinding white light as it whistled by. Hung Jun loudly shouted, "Jinglong!" Li Jinglong had arrived. Hung Jun grabbed Liu Su in return, and with a single leap, he stepped up onto the ceiling of the passageway, turning them upside down. With that flip that turned their heads and feet upside down, they just managed to avoid that arrow. Right after, several more su-su noises whistled by them, which were Mo Rigen's 7-nailed arrows. In the darkness, that arrow that Li Jinglong had loosed, which contained the power of the heart lamp, hit the center of that roiling mass of devil chi. A wild roar issued forth from the depths of the tomb. Hung Jun had just landed when Li Jinglong staggered and slid to his side, slung Hung Jun's arm over his shoulder, and shouted, "Go!" Mo Rigen raced over as well, grabbed Liu Su's wrist, and began to drag him out, but Liu Su's speed was even faster than his, and with a flash he had already raced ahead. For a time, Mo Rigen couldn't catch up, and he almost tripped because of Liu Su, so he shouted, "Wait!" The 4 of them ran to the entrance of the passageway, and they turned at once, squeezing by under the dragon-breaking stone. As soon as they left the Zhao Mausoleum, the outside was filled with water. It had begun to rain again. Hung Jun slipped, but Li Jinglong had already grabbed him and steadied him. With that, Li Jinglong immediately whirled around. Holding the sword of wisdom, he fixed his gaze on the space behind the dragon-breaking stone, ready to attack at any moment. A silence fell over the group, but Xiayu actually didn't let out any other sounds. Hung Jun said, "Just now, I..." Li Jinglong immediately made a shushing gesture, indicating for him to be quiet. He then waited for a bit more, but the inside of the Zhao Mausoleum was as devoid of movement as before. Xiayu hadn't pursued them out, and there was no devil chi spreading from under the dragon-breaking stone. "Should we go back inside to take a look?" Mo Rigen asked. Li Jinglong pointed at the place they were standing, which meant that Hung Jun and Liu Su couldn't go in. He then raised his hand in a gesture of hitting Hung Jun, meaning that he would settle these debts with him after he came out. "You two be careful," Liu Su said. Li Jinglong and Mo Rigen went into the Zhao Mausoleum, while Hung Jun and Liu Su listened nervously from in front of the dragon-breaking stone. Not long after, the two of them came out again. Mo Rigen was holding his arrows in his hand, and he exchanged a look with Li Jinglong. "It's gone?" Hung Jun asked, astonished. Li Jinglong shrugged. He then frowned at Hung Jun and said, "How come you went out just like this? You had me so worried." It was as if Hung Jun had caused trouble, and he was called to one side so Li Jinglong could admonish him. Mo Rijin squatted on the railings of the Zhao Mausoleum, and he said to Lu Su, "Hung Jun likes to play around, but you're helping him in his nonsense." Lu Su replied, irritated, "We can do work. We're not rice grubs, and you can't even run as fast as me." Hung Jun detailed what had happened, and when Li Jinglong heard the words, he startled, saying, "You managed to block its devil chi." Hung Jun replied. "It seems like it, but I don't know. You can't come out on your own anymore in the future." Li Jinglong scolded. "I had Lu Su and Zhao Zilong with me," Hung Jun said. "I didn't come out on my own." "That's right," the carp Yao added from its place on Hung Jun's back. "Are you in charge of us?" Li Jinglong originally wanted to say that no matter who it was with, that wasn't okay, but if he said that, no matter which person from the exorcism department Hung Jun went with, he couldn't be completely calm. No matter how he put it, he could only blame himself for not guarding him well today, so he no longer scolded him either. Li Jinglong patted his head, searched his thoughts for a moment. Upon seeing that Hung Jun's expression was set in one of confusion, he couldn't resist finding that funny. "When we get back tonight, I'll settle these accounts between us then," Li Jinglong replied easily. "That, you can't run around blindly like this in the future," Mo Rijin scolded Lu Su. "Though you run fast." Lu Su glared at Mo Rijin, and the two of them looked towards Li Jinglong and Hung Jun at the same time, just when Li Jinglong was kissing Hung Jun. Mo Rijin didn't dare to copy that, otherwise he figured that Lu Su would give him a roundhouse kick and send him staggering to a stop under the dragon-breaking stone of the Zhao Mausoleum. When Hung Jun heard those words, he knew that Li Jinglong wasn't angry, but he continued to ask, "But how come Xiaoyu disappeared?" Mo Rijin said to them from a distance, "I think it's a trap." Li Jinglong replied, "Let's check once more. If there's anything, we can talk about it when we get back." With that, Mo Rijin and Lu Su went back in once more, but when they got to the deepest part of the Zhao Mausoleum, the brazier was still lit, but the devil chi had already dissipated without a trace. "It wouldn't have been in the coffin, right?" Mo Rijin asked. Lu Su replied, "Impossible. That big of a snake, how can it get inside to hide?" The two of them searched all around for some mechanism, but they didn't find any. The devil chi had also completely dissipated, and when they exited, they informed Li Jinglong that there was indeed nothing left inside. The carp Yao said, "It's like we've seen a ghost, how could it have just disappeared?" Last night, Li Jinglong had already not slept for the entire night because he was too excited, and he had spent all of today rushing around, so he was exhausted. He gestured for them to go back and talk more, and he had Hung Jun remove the granite that was holding up the dragon-breaking stone. Mo Rijin then turned into the grey wolf and brought the three of them away from Mt. Jigu, back towards the city of Chang'an. End chapter. Legend of Exorcism. Chapter 82. Amber of Lanling. Colorful lanterns had just been hung, and Chang'an had just entered its nightly curfew, which was the time when every ward became bustling with noise. Li Jinglong ordered them to head to the wine shop that Turandict had opened, the Amber of Lanling. This was only because everyone in the exorcism department was gone today. No one was there to make food, so they would grab dinner there before doing anything else. Upon seeing Atai's superior and colleagues come by, Turandict was very friendly. Hung Jun had come here just a little earlier, but when he arrived back at the wine shop he was completely exhausted. Tonight, he had run, been frightened, and had to fight, and as soon as he laid down in the hall, he didn't want to move anymore. "How much money did this cost?" Li Jinglong said. "Atai, if your wife does business like this, won't she lose money? When I passed by here during the day, I didn't see many customers. If I'm happy with it, why are you butting in?" Turandict said, leaning on the staircase. "Li Jinglong, what do you want to eat?" Li Jinglong smiled. Though Turandik's words were very direct and to the point, her tone implied that she was treating them as her own people. Li Jinglong then said, Ashinakayang's also here? Noodles or dumplings, anything will do, bring on something warm so that everyone can fill their stomachs before we do anything else. Everyone went up to the second floor and put a screen around them. Not long after, the food came. They were all hungry, and after they cleared the plates off at lightning speed, Li Jinglong detailed the events of the day. Ashinakayang and A Tai were greatly astonished. I said I'd go with you too, A Tai said, frowning, and yet you didn't let me go. Hung Jun bemoaned, how was I supposed to know Xiaoyu was inside? Didn't they all say it was ghosts wreaking havoc, and yet it's even related to this. What's it doing in the royal mausoleum? Ashinakayang asked. Sucking away the corpse chi of your Emperor Taizong? Impossible ba. Everyone was very suspicious. The strangest part was why Xiaoyu would appear there, but after crossing swords, disappear into thin air just like that. It was also like that in Dunhuang, appearing and disappearing seemingly out of thin air, A Tai said. Perhaps it has some special illusion ability. Lu Su replied, the snake body that appeared in Dunhuang was its hunpo. What appeared in the Zhao mausoleum was its true body. It's impossible that a jiao as large as that could disappear in the blink of an eye, so there must be some trickery involved. Li Jinglong said to Hung Jun, next time when you investigate a case, you have to gather information first, ask some people who are in the know, and figure out what happened that night by asking them one by one. After organizing the information, gather everyone to discuss the case, and only then can you enter the Zhao mausoleum and these kinds of places to survey the scene. Hung Jun could only nod. Li Jinglong thought, well, there wasn't that much difference in the end. Even if they had investigated left and right, they'd still run into Xiaoyu when they went in. Who knows if that guy had come on purpose to keep watch on Hung Jun, or if they had run into it mistakenly. Each person gets one sentence, take a guess, Li Jinglong said in the end. Let's disperse for today ba, we'll investigate tomorrow. It's a good thing, Mo Rijin said. Xiaoyu has finally come searching. As long as we watch our step every step of the way, it will not be able to tolerate us. Li Jinglong nodded after some deep thought. My guess is that the Zhao mausoleum is one of its lairs, A Tai said. We've exposed one, but it probably still has more. There probably are special passageways between the nests, which allow it to move between them freely, like what the fox used in the past. Li Jinglong thought for a bit and said, makes sense. Ashinakayang said, Zenchi, if you all didn't stumble in on it accidentally, things may have gotten troublesome. I know. Li Jinglong shot a glance at Ashinakayang, and he had long since thought of the key point in that if it was true that Hung Jun and Lu Su ran into it accidentally, then that was all right. If this was Xiaoyu's trap, then its schemes were terrifyingly cautious. It would first have had to surveil the exorcism department, wait for a day when everyone was gone, then figure out a way to let Huang Yang go forth to persuade Hung Jun and Lu Su to head out. Huang Yang isn't a Yaoguai, Li Jinglong said. But Xiaoyu could be a human, Mo Rijin reminded him. If Xiaoyu had a human form and was an official of the imperial court, it could also result in this same effect. This is one of the possibilities, Li Jinglong said. Anything else? Everyone turned to their own thoughts, and Li Jinglong said, let's disperse first. Everyone then went off on their own, but Li Jinglong didn't move, continuing to think where he sat in the wine shop. As he thought about what had happened, he watched Hung Jun. What are you looking at? Hung Jun grew a little awkward under that stare. Go get some wine, Li Jinglong said. Hung Jun went downstairs to get some wine. Li Jinglong poured out some for him to drink, while he had Hung Jun sit by his side, holding him with one arm and going in to kiss him. He had just confessed to Hung Jun last night, and the relationship between the two of them had changed. A whole night had passed, yet he was still not completely used to it. Seeing that he was moving over to be intimate with him as soon as he was freed, Hung Jun felt so awkward that he tried to push him away, but at the same time, found that he liked him so very, very much. What are you afraid of? No one's around, Li Jinglong said into his ear. You won't let me hug you at home, nor will you let me be intimate when we're outside, are you trying to stifle me? Hung Jun's entire face was bright red as he said, for my entire life, I haven't done this with anyone before, so of course I'm embarrassed. But now you have. Li Jinglong pulled Hung Jun into his lap, and desire caused his hand to reach into Hung Jun's outer robe to touch him. Hung Jun's entire body stiffened at that, and he hurried to grab Li Jinglong's hand, only for Li Jinglong to hold his hand and press it against his own chest. Hung Jun suddenly remembered and undid his inner robe, putting magic power into that seal. Both of them were silent while that happened, and after it was over, Hung Jun said, satisfied, now that's more like it. Hung Jun wanted to help him straighten his robes, but Li Jinglong let his robes hang loose as he hugged Hung Jun, using his entire body to press him down onto the ground. Hung Jun immediately grew nervous, and he said quietly, "Atai's still downstairs. Today, during the day, I went to Mt. Li to investigate a case," Li Jinglong said quietly, their position very intimate. "The entire day, my mind was elsewhere, missing you to the point." When Hung Jun heard these words, his face immediately reddened all the way to the base of his ears. A single sentence of Li Jinglong's had struck him in his weakest spot, and he turned his head, saying, "I also missed you." Li Jinglong let out a hot breath, which smelled a little of alcohol, and he said, "As soon as you said you missed me, gag got hard, come feel it." Hung Jun hadn't expected that Li Jinglong would be more shameless than he imagined. Especially when the two of them were alone, this fellow asked for even more than he got when he spoke. And what caused his blood to boil even more was Hung Jun himself was hard too. "In the daytime, as I kept thinking about it, I was afraid that when you woke today, you wouldn't admit to any of the words you said last night," Li Jinglong said, hugging Hung Jun, pressing him against the table. He flattened Hung Jun and said into his ear, "Say it once more? Say one more time that you like me." Hung Jun pushed against Li Jinglong's face as he was squashed underneath. Li Jinglong's thing was as stiff as a thick rod, and the two of them rubbed together with the material of their silk martial pants between them. "You'd better get up quickly." Hung Jun heard the sound of the door sliding open downstairs, but Li Jinglong watched him blearily, desire written in his eyes. In that instant, Hung Jun was overwhelmed by his own desire, and he hugged Li Jinglong, burying his face in his shoulder. The two of them laid down in their clothes, entangled together. Li Jinglong was very exhausted, and he closed his eyes, unable to fight off the sleepiness and the alcohol. His breathing evened, and he fell asleep. Hung Jun felt that this embrace was infinitely safe and warm, and in Li Jinglong's chest was the heart lamp that glowed like burning sunlight. It shone into his soul, and it was as if he was bathed in the warm rays of a rising spring sun, which caused him to fall deeply asleep amidst this light. In the city of Chang'an, the watchman clapped his clappers to signal the oncoming of the night. Black clouds filled the sky, and rain water soaked the streets both small and large. A black-robed man was holding an umbrella as he slowly walked over the Zuk Bridge, and wherever he went, it was as if he had disturbed the ghosts and monsters hiding in the darkness and watching intently. Devil Chi coiled all around him, gathering into things of darkness, and roars resounded. "This is not your place. Fuck off back to your northern sea." The black-robed man's face was ashen white, and his eyes were bound with a strip of cloth that was Yuan Kun. And on Zuk Bridge, a fierce beast rose up, which had a crimson-red, ghastly head. Its black beastly body was covered with sharp scales and backwards pointing spikes, while its tusks pointed forwards, gusts of devil chi issuing forth from its mouth. Chang'an is the land of Xiaoyu. More and more Yaogwai came, lining the two sides of the Zuk Bridge. Yuan Kun held his umbrella and walked up the bridge, completely unheeding of the sounds the Yaogwai were making, continuing to walk towards that beast with the crimson head. Just as the beast was about to let out a roar and charge forth, Yuan Kun lifted his index and middle finger carelessly, touching them lightly to the fierce beast's tusk. Yet he didn't stop in his tracks, brushing by it as he walked off the Zuk bridge. Where Yuan Kun pointed, the air itself seemed to vibrate, and the fierce beast experienced a moment which stretched like 1,000 years. It turned into dust that drifted away in the wind with a shua and dispersed. The Yaogwai at the two sides immediately fell silent, no longer daring to block Yuan Kun's way. They all turned to flee, hiding themselves in the deepest parts of the darkness. On the second floor of the wine shop named the Amber of Lanling, Hung Jun had his head pillowed on Li Jinglong's chest as he hugged him around the waist, sleeping soundly as he tangled with him. Li Jinglong laid there, sprawled out on his back, snoring lightly. Yuan Kun raised his index and middle finger, touching them lightly to Li Jinglong's forehead. Blue light shone from Li Jinglong's forehead, and his snores stopped. His brows furrowed, as if he had begun to dream. The skies were filled with devil chi, and the ground was covered with corpses. Hung Jun stood on a battlefield, a huge, black dragon coiling and howling behind him. The entirety of the city of Chang'an was engulfed in blazing flames. Hung Jun was shrouded in the darkness, and his eyes glowed with a red light as he let out an infuriated roar. Ah! Hung Jun! Hung Jun! Li Jinglong pulled together the last of his strength to let out that loud shout at Hung Jun, standing in the middle of the desolate plain. But Hung Jun slowly raised a hand towards him, and the devil chi suddenly and shockingly shot towards Li Jinglong. Blood spewed forth from Li Jinglong, but he dragged along his body laden with wounds, a resplendent glow issuing from his hand as he approached Hung Jun relentlessly. The living are merely passing travelers. His low, rich voice resounded through the world, and in that instant, the black fog that blanketed the earth and sky receded before that light. The dead returned to their eternal homes. That light was the bright sun that shone over the world, the stars that twinkled in the night, a heart lamp that pierced through the darkness and would never be snuffed out, for as long as the world existed. The heavens and earth are an inn, for all our grief we return inevitably to dust. Li Jinglong shut his eyes, placing one hand on Hung Jun's forehead. White light suddenly shone forth, illuminating the battlefield filled with mountains of corpses and rivers of blood. In Xingqing Palace, a beam of strange magic soundlessly spread out, like a transparent ripple of water. It vibrated through the air at high speeds, sweeping over thousands of households in a single instant. Yuan Kun's pupils contracted at that, and he immediately pulled his hand back. With a turn of his body, he spread his arms wide, and with a shua, his physical form disappeared, turning into countless flying fishes flashing with silver light that flew out of the second floor of the wine shop. Get out of Chang'an! A deep, rich man's voice sounded. The black chi gave chase, and the flying fish gathered in the air to become Yuan Kun's physical form. Go back to your northern sea. In that instant, the black chi turned into a harpoon, which flew with a shua towards Yuan Kun. Nature has its own laws, Yuan Kun's cold, removed voice responded, before he turned into countless flying stars, rising into the sky. But the black chi didn't stop pursuing him, and it turned into a black dragon that went racing after. As soon as they pierced through the layer of clouds, under the moonlight, Yuan Kun turned into a huge kun. It opened its mouth, letting out the roar of a beast, and howled, which do not exist for Yao, nor will be destroyed for Ji. In the next moment, the huge kun opened its mouth, spewing out blinding lightning. The black dragon dispersed in midair, morphing into countless harpoons that shot like meteors blazing with black flames towards the huge kun. With a pained roar, the huge kun's lightning fizzled and struck the sea of clouds, which went as clear as if it was a mirror pool under the moonlight. There were hundreds of wounds on the huge kun's body, which seeped black chi. It then rushed into the midst of the clouds, vanishing without a trace. The black chi gathered, once more turning into a man's silhouette, which faded in and out. He looked towards the sea of clouds and chuckled coldly. That peal of thunder startled Li Jinglong awake. He only heard the thunder, but didn't see any rain come down, so he opened his eyes. He felt that his head still hurt a little, and he then pulled off his outer robe and draped it over the two of them, hugging Hung Jun as he went back to sleep. The next morning, the ceaseless, chaotic hubbub of the market sounded, waking Hung Jun. Hung Jun felt that there was a patch of wetness on his own leg, and he thought to himself, not good, so he immediately reached out to touch it. No way! It happened again? Hung Jun's face immediately flared red. But when he went to touch Li Jinglong, he found that he had also actually. No, did I accidentally get some on him? Or was he unable to hold it in last night? Hung Jun gently undid Li Jinglong's belt and reached into his pants. He originally wanted to keep his underwear between them as he confirmed, but he hadn't expected to go one layer too far and reach directly into his underwear. He had accidentally reached in too far. With only a single swipe, Hung Jun had managed to grab that huge, hard object, and his entire hand was wet. Normally, he didn't feel anything when he touched himself, but touching Li Jinglong's burning, thick that directly for the first time made him feel extremely strange. It was as if he had been struck by lightning, and Hung Jun immediately gritted his teeth and held his breath, not daring to let out any sound, his entire face filled with a strange expression. He wanted to release his grip, but he couldn't resist squeezing it a little. He remembered his shock at the size of this thing that day when he had seen it in the hot springs, and now that he tested it, it was really too big ba. Is it fun to play with? Li Jinglong asked, his eyes closed. Hung Jun suddenly pulled his hand back, and he said, I only wanted to confirm. But Li Jinglong pressed down on his hand, not letting him pull it away. He opened his eyes and studied Hung Jun, smiling. He pushed his hips forward just a little, and that thing rubbed against Hung Jun's hand. Hung Jun's entire body stiffened at that, and he couldn't resist gulping. Then, Li Jinglong reached his hand into Hung Jun's pants. Hung Jun hurried to dodge away, his face reddening to the base of his ears, saying, "Don't touch, it's wet. What did you do last night, while you had the chance?" Li Jinglong's nose rubbed affectionately against Hung Jun's ear as he spoke quietly into it, but his hand didn't stop. He went directly for Hung Jun's that, and his thumb began to draw circles around the tip of Hung Jun's thing, with a very teasing intent. Ah! Hung Jun had never felt such intense feelings. Before, he had also unconsciously touched himself a few times, but he had never learned to get himself off, and there was no one in Yaojin Palace to teach him. Though that thing was hard, it was also very sensitive, and as soon as Li Jinglong's fingers stroked it, a numbing pleasure traveled along his spine, directly to the top of his head. Li Jinglong hugged Hung Jun, his body not stopping in its movements, pulling the tip of his own thick, sturdy thing back and forth in Hung Jun's hand. "Tighten your grip a little." Li Jinglong's voice also trembled a little, clearly he felt very good. Under Li Jinglong's hand's ministrations, Hung Jun already felt so good that he shuddered, and pleasure washed over his entire body like the tide. Suddenly, Li Jinglong stopped his movements, his thumb and index finger gently pinching Hung Jun's erect thing mischievously. "Ah!" Hung Jun immediately began to shout at that. Li Jinglong swiftly kissed him, before backing off a little, pulling his own thing out from Hung Jun's grasp. "Someone's coming," Li Jinglong said. "Let's go home, and I'll give everything to you tonight. As long as you like, I'll let you play with it until you're content. Get up, let's eat breakfast first." Just as he finished speaking, Hung Jun heard the sound of the sliding wooden door downstairs, and to Raindik said, "Go up and take a look." "Spring nights are bitter and short," Tai chuckled. "You must know how to act in a delicate situation." There was a paw, like the sound of Raindik cracking the whip, and Tai, demonstrating his understanding of how to act in a delicate situation, swiftly walked into the downstairs level of the wine shop, shouting towards the second floor, "Zanji, Hung Jun, are you two awake?" I'm coming up now. A Tai said exaggeratedly, before walking heavily up the stairs to the second floor. What he saw was that Li Jinglong was already awake, lazily leaning against the railings. Hung Jun's eyes were bleary with sleep, and he looked at A Tai. There's someone looking for you at the exorcism department, A Tai replied. How much did you drink last night? Want some soul-returning wine? Li Jinglong hadn't drunk too much last night, so he waved his hand to indicate it wasn't necessary. Hung Jun put away his underwear, handing it from behind to Li Jinglong, who messily folded it and tucked it away, before leading Hung Jun down. Hung Jun was still a little awkward, but that wave of arousal from when he had woken up had disappeared, and he scratched his head, thanking Tu Reindict for taking them in last night. Tu Reindict asked, leave after you've had some noodles. Li Jinglong said as he walked, I'll take him to eat something outside, no need to trouble Dime any further. Come often, Tu Reindict added. A Tai watched the two of them with a grin on his lips, and Hung Jun smiled awkwardly back, before he left with Li Jinglong. There was a breakfast stall named Golden Jade Rice in the Western Market. It used pork bones and chicken boiled over a low flame for a long time, to which was added silver ginkgo with the veins removed, also known as white fruit, spring bamboo, and white jade tofu to improve the flavor and make it a soup. The gods and saints hunger with their eyes and want to descend to this mortal paradise, simply to eat a bowl of golden jade rice. Customers, your food is here. The waiter was holding 6 giant bowls like he was juggling them, and he put down bowls of rice on each table with a few clanks. As soon as Hung Jun looked into the bowl, he saw that half the bowl was filled with fresh, steaming round-grained rice that had just come out of the pot, on top of which was placed a piece of wild rice stem sliced paper-thin so it curled up. How is this enough to eat? Hung Jun asked. Bring on 2 more bowls. Just as Hung Jun was about to eat, Li Jinglong hurried to grab him, indicating for him to wait, as he replied, don't rush. And saying this, he gestured towards the boss, who had another large pot bubbling with soup in front of him. Watch out, soup's coming. The soup came out of the pot, a huge ladleful, which also had white fruit in there that had turned soft. It went over the rice, and this half a bowl of rice plus a huge ladleful of soup became a huge bowl of rice soaked in soup. As soon as the steamed rice grains made from round-grained rice were soaked in the soup, they grew as soft and silky as white jade. The white fruit was chewy and soft, the tofu light and sweet, and that broth was even more fragrant. Alongside the bowl of snow-white soaked rice, every customer was also given a salted duck egg still dripping with oil and a small plate of celery preserved in vinegar. Hung Jun. Eat however many bowls you want. At the long table, the two of them sat across from each other. There were few people here so early in the morning, and Li Jinglong scooped up a small spoonful of fish floss, sprinkled it over Hung Jun's bowl, and said, go slow, don't burn yourself. Hung Jun remembered once when Li Jinglong told him to eat a little less, only for the response he got to be, I have money of my own, and I'm growing, so what harm is there in eating more? He immediately picked up his spoon and began to smile, raising his head to look towards Li Jinglong. That youthful smile and the affection in those eyes immediately caused Li Jinglong to feel as if he was bathed in a spring breeze. Li Jinglong's face actually reddened, and he hurried to sling one of his legs over the other, awkwardly covering up a certain kind of development caused by pure instinct. He coughed and said, what are you smiling about? Hung Jun shook his head, chuckling to himself. Li Jinglong casually reached up and tugged down the collar of his martial robe, and he began to eat. A moment later, he seemed to think of something, and he said solemnly, is it good? If it's good, then eat a little more. Hung Jun and Li Jinglong chuckled again. What are you laughing about now? Hung Jun had already slowly lost his nervousness, and he only felt that when he was with Li Jinglong, his life had seemed to become very good. Li Jinglong said mildly, I'm laughing about how you have a natural appetite for both food and good looks. What does that mean? Hung Jun asked. Li Jinglong winked at him, and Hung Jun, his head filled with fog, ate one bowl and asked for another. When he was eating his second bowl, he suddenly understood the meaning in Li Jinglong's words, and with a pu he almost spat his food out. End chapter.